HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Bird Boys, a Delpha Wade and Tom Phelan mystery, by Lisa Sandlin, read by Rebecca Gibel. Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. Jean-Paul Sartre. Chapter 1. Soon as the office was cleared for business, Phelan trashed the yellow crime tape and hired industrial cleaning guys to blast the blood from the wood floor, patch up the stain. He'd paid them extra to work on the weekend. Still smelled funky, though. Bleachy. And underneath, a whiff of something live. Gone over. He pushed up the windows and let Beaumont's August heat KO his stuttering AC unit. The radio hijacked his attention. The Senate had for once done a day's work, slapping Kissinger and Nixon away from Cambodia. Mitts off the bomb money, boys. The news segued into War's song, Why Can't We Be Friends? Was KJET's DJ feeling cynical, wistful, both? Phelan, dressed in ragged jeans and an undershirt, squatted down and pried up the paint can's lid with a screwdriver. He popped it open to a round of Apollo White, a creamy ivory, poured some into a tray and let the fuzzy roller drink it up. One swipe across his slug-green office wall and he stepped back, mouth drifting open. Look at that. Like a wash of spotlight. The office must have been shabby all along. Dingy. Had Miss Wade noticed that? Boy, he hadn't. To Phelan, this two-room office suite, home of his new business, had appeared vacated by angels. He dipped into the paint tray again, more white swaths, wasn't sure he liked it, kind of glaring. But the least he could do was make the place look different from the office where Dieterman had tried to kill her. The phone rang. He rubbed his right hand with a rag, tossed back the drop cloth from the metal desk, and, oh man, still hand-printed its black receiver white when he clutched it. Phelan Investigations. Would I be speaking to Mr. Phelan himself? An older voice, deep, slow, borderline courtly. You be, Phelan thought, and replied, Yes, sir. What can I do for you? He was facing the wall most needing paint, the one behind his desk with the spray and the spots and the rusty line bleeding down. My name is Xavier Bell. I believe I spoke with your secretary, Miss Delpha Wade. She informed me about your fees. I would like a personal consultation next month. I thought it's best to book an appointment well in advance. That's wise, sir, considering our schedule. Tell me when you'd like to come in and I'll check the book. Which meant, look straight down onto the blank desk calendar. Allow me to deliberate a minute, Mr. Phelan. Sure thing. There was some muffled exchange, like Mr. Bell had a deliberation partner. Man could deliberate with the UN as far as Phelan was concerned. He was already waving in the delivery of a new used couch for the secretary's office. Phelan had bought 2 fattish pillow chairs that shoved together made a short couch. Pretty aquamarine color, like water before ships got in. He'd got a deal because the couch was originally what L&B pre-owned furniture described as a sectional, a bunch of pieces that stuck together. And Lester, the furniture entrepreneur, was missing an end piece. Wanted to rest your elbow on a nice solid couch arm, you were out of luck. Lester waited by the door as 2 L&B employees seized the old plaid sofa and began hauling it off. As it passed, he pointed at the plaid and pinched his nose. Phelan, muting the receiver, blew him a raspberry. Lester himself rolled in a gently used client chair, lined it up with the pillow chairs. He raised his eyebrows and escorted out the blood-stained leather one that hydrogen peroxide and leather cleaner had failed to rehabilitate, stuck his head back in the door, rubbed thumb and forefinger together. Phelan flexed his fingers. 5. He'd be over to pay around then. Lester hoisted his thumb and thumped down the stairs. Mr. Bell cleared a phlegmy throat. He had decided on Friday, September 7th at 10 o'clock in the morning if that was good. Good, Phelan said.
"Would you be the gentleman who was concerned about being located?"
Miss Wade had reported they'd had a caller who wanted to be invisible. To someone.
"I want you to find my brother, Mr. Phelan. I suppose you'd say that he is the one concerned about being located."
As for more details, Mr. Bell would prefer to wait until they could speak confidentially.
All righty.
Appointment recorded on the 7 Square in September. Phelan hung up the phone, picked up the roller soaked in Apollo white, and vanished smudges and patches of spackle. His spirits were rising from around his ankles where they'd been puddled. He finished painting the wall with the window that faced the new Rosemont Hotel, running the roller up to the cut-in portions. My God, this place was looking different already. He moved onto the wall with the connecting door in it. That one went quick. He set up the paint tray behind his desk, near the wall screaming for coverage. A starburst spray of reddish-brown drops and drips like a frozen firework. Squatted and bounced to loosen up. Rolled his shoulders. The phone trilled. Again? He made a fist, raised it straight up. Phelan Investigations was booking work. He picked up the receiver with a rag and answered cordially. His face hardened as he listened.
"Yeah, I'm Tom Phelan." "Excuse me, say again, who are you?" Okay, doctor. Got it. Now, they took her where?"
Phelan slammed down the receiver, forced the rotary dial around as fast as his index finger could shove it. He blasted his way past the law office secretary on the other end by barking the word urgent. When Miles Blankenship Esquire, attorney at law, took the line, Phelan rattled out what he wanted. He had a friend in police custody who not only needed counsel, she must not set foot in a cell. He laid out the situation. Had Miles read the Enterprise's headlines about those murdered kids? The man who'd murdered them had been killed down on Orleans Street. Miles read that? Okay. Well, it was Phelan's office he'd been killed in, and Phelan's secretary who'd taken him out. Pure self-defense. The man attacked her, stabbed her. But there was some crucial history Miles had to know. She was on parole after 14 years in Gatesville. The charge back then had been voluntary manslaughter. She'd killed a man who had been raping her.
"So this is the second guy? Only been out 5 months. Don't want her going back in a cell. You're clear on that point, Tom. Tell me, was she also armed?" "No, unarmed. Broke a liquor bottle, used that."
Phelan overrode all objections, didn't give a flying fuck if Miles Blankenship's field was divorce. Miles had passed the Texas bar, he was the single lawyer Phelan knew, and Miles had to hit it please for the police station now. In Watergate terms, at this point in time. Phelan would see him there. Down at the curb, he unlocked his trunk, grabbed out the spare shirt and pants he kept in his PI kit, stripped and dressed on Orleans Street, ignoring a wolf whistle from 2 guys in a Chevy C10. He double-timed the concrete steps. His route? Shoot past the Formica front desk and its likely guard, Venerable Sergeant Fontenot, with the wire brush eyebrows. Swerve left into the squad room past bulletin boards tacked with mimeographs, past the cops shooting the breeze in school desks, others jabbing typewriters, a thief or two in the folding chairs. Jog straight to the back past a holding cell and bust into E.E.'s office, where he would persuade his uncle, the chief of police, to take Delpha Wade's statement without first arresting her, printing her, locking her in a cell. This fantasy was forbidden by station policy. Also by the policeman's etiquette guide and the nephew's codebook. Moves like the one Phelan was entertaining were why the Suck It Up manual existed. Nevertheless, he nodded to the desk sergeant and kept on walking.
"Whoa there! Where you passing yourself by to, Tom Phelan?"
Couple of uniforms off to the side, gabbing. He stared them down and leaned over the scarred Formica to the sergeant. Instead of saying he was here because he'd been the first on the scene, his own office, or that he was Delpha Wade's employer, which around the station was generally known, Phelan muttered, "You told me they wouldn't charge her." Two riotous gray thatches thrust down over Sergeant Fontenot's small, blue, troubled eyes. He had said that very thing, and now, appearing irritated by his own turmoil, he stalled.
"Who you talking about?"
Phelan's lips pulled to one side.
"Delpha Wade. Doctor just called me. Said police are down at the hospital hustling her in." "Hustling? No, Abels and Tucker. They left here like a herd of turtles. We just bringing her in to ask her some questions. Let me ask you one, Sergeant Fontenot. How many boys you dug up down at Dieterman's house? What's the tally?"
Now the uniforms angled toward Phelan.
6, so far. They looking off in some other places now. After he did what he did to those kids, you tell me offing that guy wasn't a bona fide public service?
"Fucking A," put in one of the uniforms, a white kid with scrappy hair and a large red ear angled toward the front desk.
"Shut up, Wilson,"
Fontenot said wearily. He lowered his chin and challenged Phelan.
"Ain't nobody don't know that. Then why y'all bringing her in?" "'Cause your uncle, he say so. He's the chief of police, you don't notice. You don't told him what to do. Pardon your ass share. You private bird dog hadn't did 6 months' worth of business yet." "Got me there, Sergeant. But allow me to remind you what you said to me after my secretary had to fight for her life. You said, 'Nobody's touching that girl.' Not making an argue with you. But allow me to mind you that anybody get dead, we got forms to fill out. Set your behind in a chair, you."
Fontenot waited until Phelan's back was turned, then grumbled into the intercom. To E.E., Phelan knew, because the old snitch was grumbling in French. Edouard Etienne Guidry, hometown, New Orleans, Louisiana. Appearance, short, dark, and handsome. Sartorial taste, radiant. Was married to Phelan's Aunt Marianne, his mother's younger sister. He was a man Phelan took stock in, and there weren't so many of those. Chief Guidry rounded the corner and strode past the desk area, raking thick fingers through his silvered hair. Shirt sleeves, the knot in a kaleidoscope tie wrenched halfway down his broad chest. He rolled his eyes when Phelan started to rise and made a mashing motion at his nephew. Phelan sat back down. E.E. stood there, hands on his hips, 2 pinky sparklers and a wide gold band.
"Tête dure, you. Who warned you about hiring an ex-con?"
Phelan's hard head lowered.
"She served it, as you know. Went in 59 and got out in this year of our Lord, 1973. She started over. Going back to jail, that's the worst thing that could happen to her."
E.E. continued to glare.
"All right, okay, I'm an asshole messing in police business. You got my sincere apology, but I gotta be here. There it is. This about you. Some is, okay? She was just sitting in my office putting letters in envelopes, and I should have been there. Should have taken that knife. But most of it's about her, about what's right. And that is, it was the clearest self-defense there is. That girl's been around law enforcement almost as many years as your right hand's been around your dick. She knows the drill. Doesn't mean she can't use a body on her side."
His uncle's eyes slitted.
"This here the body you talking about?"
Phelan turned to see Attorney Miles Blankenship entering the double doors, slipping off his aviators to display a neutral expression. At least Phelan was pretty sure that was who that was. He'd spoken to him on the phone, but hadn't actually laid eyes on Miles in 10 years. And the last time he had, Miles was wearing a long black robe and a mortarboard hat. The elegant man walking through the door wore wide-lapelled navy pinstripe, nipped at the waist, modest bell to the creased trousers. His black calfskin briefcase might have been rubbed with 20s to give it the mellow sheen.
"You know, Tom."
E.E. was squinting toward Miles.
"I seen you be lost, be steady, be stupid in the head and a brave little son of a bitch. It's the first time you act like Judas Iscariot. Come on, E.E., no disrespect. That's a friend from high school, and he was what I thought of to help Delpha out. You paying his fee?"
Phelan nodded.
"'Cause you overflowing with cash? The private eye business that hot? You a man of means?"
He let E.E.'s words curl, topple, and break against his forehead. He held his peace as his old friend from high school joined the conversation.
"Miles Blankenship, Chief. Firm of Griffin and Kretschmer. Honor to meet you. I'll be representing—" "I got it."
E.E. shook Miles' hand, dropping it when the door opened again. Detective Fred Abel's Burns and Stash and houndstooth jacket had hold of her elbow. Must be Detective Tucker bringing up the rear. A husky pug nose in a park bench green leisure suit, with his collar fashionably widespread. Phelan felt a flash of gratitude toward E.E. for the lack of cuffs on her, flash of blessed Jesus when he examined a pale Delpha Wade braced between the two detectives. A glance around at E.E., Fontenot, and Miles assured Phelan she had gripped the general attention. Shirt from a slaughter yard. Heat crept the back of Phelan's neck. He knew what had gone down in his office because he'd arrived not too many minutes after the fight was over. Cops would ask her who started that fight, the man who walked in, or Delpha. And being as how hospitals do have access to various types of clean clothes, yeah, they do, her wardrobe today must mean she wanted the police to get the picture. The hole in the crumpled white blouse drew the eye, rusty rosette formed around it, broad rust stripe trailing down. The brown patches and gout and spray around the collar would not be hers, Phelan guessed, but they sure enhanced the grisly effect. The navy blue skirt was blackened at the waist. There was a spoiled iron smell in the air. She seemed to be walking with an effort. Delpha's head turned, stopped at Phelan. The light brown hair an inch above her shoulders had felt some wind, and she had not combed it into place. No powder or rouge on the high cheekbones. Just lipstick the color of lips. She looked at him for a long second before her gaze retracted. E.E. introduced himself to Delpha and told her they'd like to ask her some questions, get everything squared away. Standard stuff in this situation. Miles was next. Told her he was here to act as her attorney if that was agreeable to her. Delpha's head nodded slightly. She took a small sidestep, almost a dip, and the lawyer cupped her elbow. Had the detectives read her Miranda rights?
"She's not under arrest, counselor,"
E.E. said.
"We just fixin' to take a statement. Determine what's what."
He hooked his head at Abel's.
"Y'all go on."
Miles, ex-drum major, valedictorian, high-dollar divorce lawyer, was not on his own ground. Still, he emitted serene, tailored, carnivorous readiness. Man was capital B billable. Phelan took scrupulous note. He knew something about masculine presentation, but he hadn't honed it like this. Delpha looked at Phelan again. "You call him for me?" Faint light in the blue-gray flatness of her eyes, and she said it private, like only he could hear her. Phelan lifted his chin. The detectives shepherded her past him. Miles shot Phelan a glance and went with them. All squad room activity, breeze shooting, questioning, report writing, filing, phone talking, candy bar eating, and cigarette smoking, everything buzzing back there would pretty much freeze, Phelan bet, while they watched the woman wearing the bloodbath pass by. E.E. tapped Phelan's chest.
"We got your statement the boys took at the scene. Don't need you, Tommy."
He wheeled and followed them. Phelan went to the restroom and scrubbed his paint-crusted knuckles and nails, stump of his left middle finger, wrists. Came back, sat in the chairs lined up beneath a long window that, despite central air and Venetian blinds, still beat with sun. The wall clock's hands puttered around, stuck a while, went backward and scooped up some minutes forgot, trudged onward. He sat and smoked and sweated. From time to time, Fontenot disappeared from the desk and then returned and busied himself answering the phone and doodling on a clipboard. Addressed himself extra conscientiously to visitors. Trimmed his gaze so it did not reach the border of Phelan's outlands. Chapter 2. The hitch from the wound's incision made her feel like she had a hook in her, from belly button to backbone. Her stomach was tight, sore. But at the sight of Miles Blankenship's magazine suit and easy carriage, Delpha Wade's knees unlocked. Her head went feverishly light. Had not had a lawyer who'd walked like that, like wherever he went, the street beneath his feet welcomed him. Wearing a suit that looked like somebody'd sewed it only for him. Spoke naturally, courteous to the police chief, and she could tell he never once wondered would he get spoken back to or how. Miles Blankenship was equipped for how. He belonged here in the station. Belonged behind the nice oak desk he was sure to have, in a restaurant with velvet curtains, in a forward pew. And here he was, on her side, speaking for her, God Almighty, throwing the protection of the law over her like a coat and not a net. Here was the difference between 14 years and walking around free. She widened her stance to keep steady, in case gold sequins broke out before her eyes. Detectives Abels and Tucker took hold of the chairs across from where she and the lawyer were standing. The wall to her right was being held up by Joe Ford, Delpha's parole officer, 6'5" and glum as a buzzard. One of Joe Ford's many instructions during their first meeting: the parolee must not own any knife with a blade longer than 2 inches, except for a kitchen knife, and only if their parole agent says so. Joe caught her eye, his gaze flickering. He probably didn't favor being called to this room over a parolee of his, with police chief and lawyer, maybe any minute the D.E.A., men far above his pay grade. Mr. Ford, I didn't have a 2-inch knife, or a 10-inch one. Just a whiskey bottle resting in a bottom drawer. Doesn't signify. Not a plug nickel. Because it come down to me or him. Pug-nosed Tucker took the first chair, head drifting back, eyes squeezing shut, and produced a misty sneeze. He patted his pockets, fished out a handkerchief. Mr. Blankenship pulled out the chair across from Tucker for Delpha, inclined his head at it. She sat. Unexpectedly, he ushered the chair with her suddenly unbalanced in it to the table. He took his place next to her. Abels, the detective with the mustache and sideburns, slid off his houndstooth jacket and hung it on the back of his chair. He plopped down a white tablet and sat heavily, scraped the chair forward, uncapped a pen.
Okay, Delpha. On the afternoon of August 15th, 1973, where were you?
A bulldog wearing a drill sergeant's hat glowered from his forearm. Office of Phelan Investigations, downtown on Orleans Street.
Was anyone with you?
No.
Where was your employer?
Out on a case.
When the deceased came to the door, you invited him in?
He walked in.
Door wasn't locked?
No.
What did you say to him?
Asked how I could help him.
Okay. What did he say?
Said a girl said she left a book for him outside the door, but it wasn't there. Abels waited for her to continue, and when she didn't, said,
What did you say?
Told him I brought it in and I'd get it for him and he could go.
You were in a hurry to get rid of him?
Yes, sir.
Why was that?
He wanted to know if my boss was gone. Looking around to make sure I was by myself.
Maybe he was just looking at his surroundings,
Abels said, maintaining the neutral cop tone. Delpha's eyes flicked to Tucker's, then settled back on Abels. She answered nothing.
You believe he intended to harm you?
Yes, sir.
Without him making any kind of threat?
She nodded.
How'd you come to think that?
Front of his pants was standing up. And so on, slow and methodical, through the moment her attacker had pulled a knife and the events that followed. Then a detailed recapitulation of those events. It was 89 minutes before Abels switched gears and the lawyer sitting next to her meaningfully shifted his posture forward.
Okay, Delpha. In April of this year, you were released from Gatesville Women's Prison?
I was.
You were incarcerated for what charge?
Voluntary manslaughter.
Your victim was?
Miles Blankenship finished the sentence.
A rapist, Detective. That's enough of those questions. They're irrelevant to the matter at hand. We all know Miss Wade happens to be on parole, and we all know that what we have here is justified self-defense. An individual with more than a reasonable belief that the use of force was necessary, defending her life against a depraved and aggressive predator, as any man in this room would have done without a second thought. Let me emphasize that. Without a second thought. Any man.
He scanned the faces in the room, skipping Delpha's.
There is no crime here, gentlemen. Miss Wade was carrying no weapon, so there is not even a parole violation. Not even that. This interview is a formality, the necessity of which we all understand. But let's get this formality over with. Keep in mind that you've removed my client from a hospital bed.
Whereas the cops gazed flat-faced at Miles, Delpha noticed that her parole officer Joe Ford straightened up against the wall. He had unfolded the long arms he had barricaded in front of his chest and slipped his hands in his pockets. No violations. No way he could be faulted. Abel's, brow raised, cut his eyes toward the chief, who hiked his chin a quarter inch. The detective's gaze sank back to hers. He jerked his neck to the side and back, getting his head on tighter.
All right. Say again for the record. You were alone when the deceased came to the office?
Yeah.
You invited him in?
He walked in.
Okay. Did you talk with him?
Their verbal exchange was repeated for a third time. Delpha told the same story, reiterated that no, she had not met the man prior to this time nor seen him. Yes, she had heard of him from her boss, Mr. Phelan.
And what was it your boss told you?
That he was preying on boys.
You knew that for a true fact?
No, for a fact Mr. Phelan believed that. Abel's mouth screwed to the side. Irritation sparked in his eyes. For only a second, then his tone traded its dogged neutrality for a mild, false curiosity.
Why didn't you just run, Delpha?
'Cause he was hoping I would. Without unfolding his arms, Chief Guidry spoke up.
You read his mind?
Read the way he waved the knife.
What waving technique was that?
Fake confusion from Abel's. Inviting me to make a break for it. Tucker sawed at his nose with a horizontal finger.
You could have hollered for help.
She nodded agreeably. He would have liked that.
How would you know? Explain that for us.
Tucker sniffed. No, sir. You hadn't been in a knife fight, I can't tell you. Rather you ask me a specific question. The eraser of the lawyer's pencil bounced on the yellow legal pad he was smiling down on. Abels balefully resumed the lead.
So you had no hesitation before you killed him?
Not after he stabbed me. Pause in the interrogation as possibly Abels regrouped and the other men measured themselves against this answer.
All right, then. Delpha, just for a minute, setting aside what we know now that your assailant is also the chief suspect in 6 murders, on the afternoon in question, you didn't know that.
Her lips parted. She stared straight on at Abels and his coarse mustache with a few gray hairs in it. He would have been on that site. She knew it. At his rank, case like this, Abels would have pictures in his head of whatever was left of those young bodies in dirty plastic. He'd have putrefaction fresh in his nose. Nobody sets 6 dead boys off to the side, she said. You don't. Abel's head twitched like there was a bone inside he had to pop straight. There was silence.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?